With me now for reaction to Vice President Harris's interview is Michael Steele, former chair of the Republican National Committee, co-host of The Weekend on MSNBC, Michelle Goldberg, opinion columnist for the New York Times, and Tim O'Brien, senior executive editor of Bloomberg Opinion. Michael, let me start with you. You're remote there. What did you think of the interview?
I thought it was very good. I mean, look, you just have this moment. We have a presidential candidate is sitting down and saying, here's what I think about what's happening in the country. Here's what I'm offering to the American people. And I just thought it was solid. I love the part in the speech that she related to and sort of drove in the conversation with Stephanie. You know, this combo meal of I'm a capitalist who supports unions and workers. And that's a space we have not been in a very, very long time, where that bridge is connected, where oftentimes we try to pit one side against the other. She really is trying to figure out a way to create this opportunity economy around some fundamentals that translate across party, platforms in a way that people don't get stuck on them. You know what I'm saying? So you don't get stuck on stupid. And you retreat to, well, I'm a conservative, I'm a liberal, I'm a progressive, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. You sort of say, well, how does this benefit my economy, my personal economy? So I think she came out strong on that.
One of my big takeaways, Tim, is that the revival of industrial policy, which in some ways never went away because we have this thing called the Defense Department where we do all our industrial policy and have for a very long time, spends hundreds of billions of dollars every year. But the sort of revival of industrial policy, both as rhetoric, right? We need, redundancy in supply chain, something she talked about with steel. We need to bring manufacturing back, and we're going to use policy levers to do it. That there is continuity there, right? Like that part of the Biden agenda, which is a huge part of it, is also part of the Harris agenda.
And it's tied into what happened during the pandemic when we realized all of the outsourcing we had spent years doing put us at risk at the high end around chips and at the very basic manufacturing level. And when she's delivering these messages now, I think she keeps getting better when she talks about policy of also adding a little dollop of a tweak that is going to get under Trump's skin. So she not only said today that Donald Trump talked tough against the Chinese, but actually didn't deliver on anything that mattered in terms of winning that war. And when she referred to manufacturing, she said, we lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs. Donald Trump was the world's biggest loser when it came to manufacturing. And I can guarantee you that getting the biggest loser into the description of that phenomenon is going to get under his skin. And she's on point and she's on message and she's doing it consistently. She sort of dropped that tweak in during an interview with Stephanie when she said, at his very small rallies. She's not missing these things, but she's also defining herself as a pragmatist. She's saying, I don't want to be ideological about these things. I want to find solutions that help working Americans retain jobs, make more money, improve their lives, embrace opportunity, and it grows the middle class.
There's this sort of a term in political discourse around, in polling of generic Democrat, which is like they'll always poll a generic Democrat. And the joke of it is that the generic Democrat always does better than the individual candidate because you can just sort of project whatever you want onto a generic candidate. But then when you have an actual person, then it's harder. That said, part of what I think the success of the Harris campaign has been is sort of running as a generic Democrat. And I mean that in a good way, which is this is kind of meat and potatoes, center-left Democratic policy that she's enunciating.
Well, and that's one thing that drives why it's driven me so crazy when people say, what does she stand for? What is she going to do? It's been, I think, fairly obvious, if you're paying a modicum of attention, that she is going to do her best to enact, as you said, a center-left Democratic policy agenda. And so for the people out there who still are kind of hazy on what her plans are, she has hopefully given them at least, I'm not sure how much those questions are in good faith, but in as much as they are in good faith, I hope that she has answered them. And the other thing I'm struck by is how far actually both parties have moved from in some ways, certain populist ideas have become instantiated across the political spectrum, industrial policy. But really, neither party at this point are kind of railing against corporate America, are railing. I mean, Donald Trump has dropped his entire kind of, pitchfork shtick about the elite trying to screw you. But the Democratic Party, I think, because they are so worried about being tarred as radicals or socialists, have also backed off a lot of the things that they learned from Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. The sort of populist temperature, if you want, is pretty low in her tone. The only place you really saw it, Michael, was on the price gouging, which I think is good politics, right? She said, if you are taking advantage of people, I'm going to go after you and I'm not going to make apologies. And she said about paying a fair share, but there is not a lot of, she is not striking a populist tone, I think is a fair assessment of the kind of rhetorical mode she's working in when talking about this stuff.
No, not an absolute populist tone, but I think there is a modicum of populism in it when she talks about the American worker.
Yeah.
When she talks about families, having to, they don't want their life to be disrupted because the car broke down. All right. So, we're going to create an economy in which you can do two things at once: that continue to work, fix the car, pay the bills. And so that is a form of populism that is not at the extremes, but touches on what Michelle was just referring to is something is that center left space where you can shape it. And this is what Reagan did, and this is what others have done on the Republican side before he went into cray-cray land with Trump. Where you sort of find that thing that appeals across the spectrum, and you make the case as close to that central point that touches someone in suburbia as well as in urban cities, as well as in exurbs.
One of the places where I think you see that, and one of the places where I think there really is a ideological marker, a difference from what I've seen from Biden or any actual Democratic nominee that I've covered in my career as a journalist, is housing. I've never seen housing as central to a domestic policy agenda from a Democrat or in any campaign as I am this one. And you can tell, Tim, when Kamala Harris talks about it, this is a serious commitment. They really think we need to bring housing costs down. They really like this idea of new home ownerships, new supply, all that stuff.
Because we have to.
Absolutely. No, I think the crisis got so bad.
When we talk about the whole, the mystery of why inflation has such traction as this sort of red herring, when there's been job growth, there's been wage growth, there's GDP growth.
Rent is the killer.
It's
and
because
interest rates.
It's the real issue is affordability across a range of things, with housing being front and center, and housing being part of the American dream, and people's idea of being able to put down a financial stake in the ground and build wealth and have a home for their family, and they can't get there. And she's a California politician. This is a humongous issue.
Who's learned the hard way. And I do think this is the space where, on the substance, on the politics, all of it is in the sweetest spot for a Democratic politician.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Although it's interesting because I don't think Donald Trump gets enough. I don't think people kind of draw out the implications enough of Donald Trump constantly saying, we're not going to build apartments in your beautiful suburbs.
Exactly.
Right? Donald Trump kind of wants less housing construction. And I don't think I think that there's more that Democrats can do to draw out the implications of that for the housing crisis.
This is a place where there's a stark policy difference between these two candidates on housing vision.
He has
more
no
supply.
policy.
Well, right, that's the other thing.
He's deport migrants.
Well, and slap on a tariff, which is actual policy he actually is going to do. That he believes in.
But he doesn't understand tariffs.
Doesn't matter if he doesn't understand it. He's going to do it. Michael Steele, Michelle Goldberg, Tim O'Brien, thank you. You've got